Okay, so this is what we got right here, my friends. If you remember, we did this guy, was it last week or did we miss last week? You guys remind me? I think we missed last week, right? Yeah, we didn't have a live stream last week because I had the launch at the museum. But we were doing this last week or 2 weeks ago. We did the sculpting and the modeling and all that stuff. So today we're gonna go into the hand painted texture, and this is what we normally can achieve with, again, like filters and things like that, which is not bad. We get something, right? Like it looks okay. If you're doing like an indie game and you don't have a lot of like resources or time or money, well, this could work. But here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna export the textures. Let's go here to the desktop, temporal meshes, fish bakes. Let's export right there. And I'm just gonna export exactly like they are right there. There we go. I need to go into Maya real quick to fix this thing right here. By the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but Maya 2026 released a couple of weeks ago. And now let me see where this freaking fish was. File. Okay, it was on the meshes temp on my desktop. Let's see. Always amazing how borders become meaningless when people have the same goals. Love it. Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about art, Max. Art is universal. Like I used to have this very like bad feeling about myself, being like, oh, I'm Mexican, no one's gonna take me seriously because I think Mexico is a third world country. And yes, I mean, our country has a lot of issues, but art unifies everyone, right? Like I can share this with everyone. We have people here from Brazil, from India, from Germany, from Europe, from of course the United States. We got people from Latin America. I'm not sure if we got anyone from Africa. Do we have anyone from Africa right here? Africa is usually the country where we don't get as many students. Of course, understandable why, but yeah, like art unifies everyone. Let's see, oh, we got a first-time chatter here, Celestial Temporis. What's up, man? And Sedari Kun as well. Hello, my friends. Yeah, we got people from Argentina, Norway. Oh wow! Every time someone mentions Norway, I always have to mention the freaking cheese that I ate one time. The Getorscht, I think it's called. It's this like goat cheese, right? Oh my god. So I had it, this was probably like 12 years ago, and I still remember that freaking taste. So good. So freaking good. Okay, so we're gonna go here into Maya. Yeah, that counts, List 3D. That definitely counts. There you go, Luigi from Tunisia. Awesome. The people from the Philippines, from Ireland, Turkey, guys, at Egypt, Dara. There we go. Yeah, no. So we're pretty much global now. We are pretty much global. Awesome. Fish. It's this one. Okay. So what I'm gonna do here inside of Maya is I'm going to assign a new material. It's gonna be just a Maya Lambert material. And we're gonna go to the color file, of course, and we're gonna reference the file from this guy right here. So fish bakes, and it should be this one right here. Hit open. And if we press number 6, this is what we get. But here's the thing, guys, very common mistake. When we're dealing with hand painted textures, we don't want to have any sort of like light information affecting our elements, okay? So what we're seeing right here, and you can probably see it here, there's shadows, right? Can you see the shadows of the normals, like hitting the different elements? We don't want that. So I'm gonna go here to shading, or sorry, to lighting, and I'm gonna use flat lighting. That will give us the actual sort of like colors that we have here on our element. This is like completely flat, absolutely no like light information, which is what we want, okay? Now I'm also gonna change this ACES to the Unity neutral tone, because this will give us the, again, actual colors. If we keep this at ACES, it will sort of like color balance things a little bit, which is good for certain things, but not for this particular ones. And what I need to do here is just move this little guy right here. This is gonna be like a little gold plate that we're gonna have in this area. And I just need to make sure that it fits the like hollow section of the wood a little bit better. That's it. That's all what we need to do here inside of Maya. So now I'm gonna grab all of this, guys. I'm gonna say File, Export Selection, and I'm gonna go here again to the temp meshes, and I'm gonna set this as fish_B2. Okay, that's important. So fish_B2. Why is that important? Because we don't want to mess with the original file that we have, and we want to work with this for like a clean element in just a second. Let's see, we got from Central Asia, Turkestan, Romania. Oh man, we got people from everywhere. Maria says we need an ape concert. That would be interesting. There's a lot of places that I want to visit. One of the places that my wife and I want to go, like relatively soon, I would say, maybe in the next like 6 years, 7 years, is Scotland. We want to go to Scotland. I personally want to go to Japan, so that will be fun. We got people from Ukraine as well. Awesome. Okay, so let's close this. We don't need it anymore, and let's close that one as well. And we're gonna go to 3D Code. Now, I don't have 3D Code, the full version. I have this one called 3D Code Textura. And 3D Code Textura is the sort of like texturing side of 3D Code. It's a relatively simple software, guys. Like, it's not one of those, like, it's not like ZBrush that is, like, extremely complicated. At least this, again, like, texturing part. So I'm going to select this, which is Paint the UV Map Mesh. We're going to open the mesh right here. And we're going to go to Desktop, Temp, and we're going to grab our Fish B2 right there. Hit Open. Over here, we're going to select the different things that we want to do. In this case, we really don't need to change anything. It's an FBX, so everything should be done by default. And the only thing is to select the map. Here, I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this Fish TX. So I know that's the texture. 2K is fine for this asset. It's a relatively small asset. So there we go. And look at that. We immediately get the... the information, right, of the element, like straight into the element. So it knows where to look for the textures so that we can get here, in this case, the base color layer that we want. So that's great. But I'm going to show you how to get this inside of the element if we need to. So I'm going to delete that layer. Let's imagine this is what we get, right? Like just the basic object with no textures. You just need to go to textures, import, and we're going to select color albedo map. And then here in the base, we select the base color and hit open. That's it. It's the exact same thing. I just did this manually. 3D Manic says, hey Abe, why can't we just ZBrush to hand paint textures on the models? I'm gonna explain to you, and it's such a stupid thing, the reason why we can't do it, and I don't know why other softwares haven't solved this. Like, I'm telling you, if Substance solved this thing tomorrow, I would no longer need 3D Code, and I would just do everything inside of Substance. Like, that's it, no questions asked. But it's the brushes. The way the brushes work inside of 3D Code are the most sort of like traditional feel, and I know it sounds very like subjective, but it's a feel of how the brushes work, and they just work so nice here inside of 3D Code. That and the sampling tool, which I'm gonna show in just a second. So yeah, there we go. Now I'm gonna press number 2. Number 2 is gonna jump into flat mode. Flat mode allows me to just focus on the colors. I'm not gonna be like focusing on any shading. And you can see if I go back to, I believe it's number 5. Yeah, there we go, number 5. There is some shadowing issues happening right here because we're mirroring the UVs. So we get that like interesting shadow. That's why we need to go to number 2. Number 2 is gonna give us just like the flat colors right here. And this already gives us a very nice sort of like starting point, right, for the fish. Like all of the things that we did inside of Substance already give us a nice beginning stage. But we're going to be fixing more of these elements. Now, I need to bring one more texture that we're going to be using a little bit later, and it's going to be the ambient occlusion. So I'm going to use this external ambient occlusion and just bring this in and hit OK. Here we go. So now this ambient occlusion lives on the top of everything, and we're going to be using it a little bit later to like shade some of the objects, okay? So let's see. Yeah, it's the brushes, man. It's the brushes that feel like a little bit different. Wow says, I'm really bad at UV unwrapping at the moment. What are some tips and things I have to understand to get better? That's a great question. Well, we actually have a video here on the channel that you might want to check later on. That's called 5 Steps for Great UVs or something like that. I've made several videos. Check them out. After the stream, of course, we don't want you to leave, and you can see how those elements can work very nicely. Let me open PureRef. Yeah, it's just like 5 steps that I normally follow for. Awesome. This is an awesome concept by Evelyn, as I mentioned last time. And yeah, this is what we get. So in this concept, as you can see, we get a lot of like hard colors. I think it's a very like contrasty look or contrasty effect for the character, which is not bad, right? Like that can definitely work. but I'm probably gonna go a little bit lighter in the colors, just be a little bit more modern in terms of like the color distribution. So let me get my pen and let's do some quick tests right here. Now, there's a thing here about 3D Code Textura. I'm using version 12, 2024.12. I can actually upgrade to the latest one, but this one has a very nice thing here with Maya, which is custom navigation, or sorry, custom scheme, and I can use the Maya scheme. So that's what I'm using. I'm gonna bring my color palette over here. I like to change my color palette to quad. It's a little bit easier to find like the colors I'm looking for. And I'm gonna use this like sharp color. I'm gonna create a new layer over here, and this is where the magic is going to start, because we can start like placing some colors in our element. So people were asking, why is this so easier than other softwares? Because to sample a color, you just press a key. So I just need to press the V key on my keyboard, and I automatically, as you can see, sample the color that I'm selecting. Can you see that? And that makes it so much easier. Why? Because let's say I want to add a little bit of highlights here on the fish's like upper body, right? So I'm gonna sample that color right there, which is a lighter like a shade of blue, and then I'm gonna start like adding the color, right? Of course, I'm using pen pressure. That's why I can get like different variations on my tones. And then if I need to grab one of these variations, I can just V very quickly, and I can start blending things a lot easier. See that? I cannot do that in Marmoset or Substance, or I don't think even Blender. So being able to quickly select these colors and start blending them is what I think makes 3D Code so powerful for hand-painted textures. Can it be done in other softwares? Of course. If you are fine with like doing other types of like methods for sampling colors, you can adapt this to any other like software. Like the principles of hand-painted stuff and texturing, they apply anywhere. But I personally find it very, very, very comfortable to be able to sample colors this fast, okay? So what is the main, you guys tell me, what do you guys think is the most important thing about hand-painted textures? It's not the fact that we're hand-painting them, right? Like that doesn't really make any like special difference, I would say. What do you think, or what do you guys feel hand-painted textures, or why do you guys think hand-painted textures are so cool? Like, what do you think Arcane and all of those are so interesting? The strokes, that's a good guess for Alan. Yeah. Yes, you paint the shadows and the lights. Backdraw is also like very precisely mentioning it. The thing that makes hand-painted textures so important in terms of performance, in terms of the way they look, artistic decisions, is that you paint all the information. We don't have normal maps. We don't have roughness. We don't have metalness. There are some games that use a mix of both. Like, for instance, I think you guys have seen this this other game. Let me go here. I think it's called Wayfinder. Right? Have you seen this one? I haven't played it. I'm really tempted to play it because I think it's like a Diablo game and it looks very, very cool, very stylized as well. And in this one, they use a little bit of a mix of both. So it's hand-painted stuff, but they use normal maps. They use a little bit of roughness map, or metalness map. Like you can see it here on how this shield is like shining, or how the swords are shining. So you can play with that kind of stuff, which is great. But there's other games like League of Legends, like World of Warcraft, like all of these other elements where you want to capture everything in just one map. The big advantage of doing that is that we get the access to a very efficient way of shading things. Because instead of having to waste memory space, texture space, rendering processes into calculating all of the values and the information from the different maps, you already have it in one. So it gives you a very, very nice sort of like effect. And look at that. Look at how much like information we can get into the object with very, very simple values, right? Like that's one of the big advantages of this thing. So let me open one of the other softwares because we're going to be doing a little bit of theory here just to explain how this works. And it's important to understand. Let's see. I saw some artists using Photoshop side by side with 3D Code. They said the word, yeah, we're gonna use it. We're gonna use it as well during the stream, Yumemochi. Consistent language in detail and uniqueness. Yes, that's also important, Jonathan. Also very, very important. Okay, so the most important thing, as someone is saying right here, I think it was Beckerdraw. He's saying, or he's talking about values, right? And yeah, that's totally right. So when we are painting anything, right? If we use values, we can describe form. So if I do, for instance, a sphere right here, a completely gray sphere, and I start painting values, like a white value right here, right? And then I paint, I don't know, like a darker shade right here. You can start to see a little bit of volume. This looks horrible. Oh my god. I'm gonna start with the allergies already. This looks horrible, of course, but you can see how the difference between values gives us the sense of volume, right? Because this is 2D. This is a 2D image, and even this one right here, even though it's a 3D object, it's still a 2D map, right? So we're using all of these textures and all of these values to generate volume and to make things look a lot more interesting than what they actually are. So that's why hand-painted textures is so cool. Another reason, this is a personal sort of like preference of mine, but another reason why I think hand-painted stuff is so interesting is because it's timeless, right? Like you can still like look at the World of Warcraft like assets that we had from vanilla, and they look very cool. You can play them in 40 years, and due to the style that they were like done in, it's like they're never gonna sort of like fade away or anything. In comparison, if you look, for instance, at the graphics from, let's say, Gears of War, right, from the first couple of games, then right now they definitely look a little bit outdated compared to what we can see in more realistic types of games. So hand-painted stuff, cartoon style, anime style, right, all of these things, they can be very timeless if you know how to like do them properly. So that's one of the things that I like about them. Thank you guys, thank you. Was going to start a drawing session, but Abe explains hand-painted textures. Ken means that. Hey, you're welcome, Fred. Welcome. So I would say one of the main like things that we need to remember about hand-painted textures and like painting or drawing in general, Vector Draw here can definitely help me out with that one, is to remember that we're gonna have our lights and our shadows. Some people like to start with the shadows first, some people like to start with the lights first, but it's all about how you play with these values, how you blend them together to generate something interesting. Here, I'm gonna show you something. This is very stupid, but it's gonna be fun. Let's say I want to add a cut right here on the fish, right? Like someone, I don't know, was trying to fish this guy out of the sea, and there's a cut. So if light is coming from the top, which as you can see, I'm defining it that way because we're getting a lot of the highlight on the top of the element, then what I need to do is I need to add a shadow. If I add a little bit of a shadow and then I blend that shadow is gonna look like a cut, right? Like it's just gonna look like a cut. But then what I can do, for instance, is I can go for a lighter color and then support that cut with a highlight, because that plane right there is catching the light coming from the top. And since it's catching the light coming from the top, we're gonna see light hitting that specific area. So now it looks like there's volume. It looks like we're cutting into the fish and we're getting this very nice sort of like cut effect. And very simple. And remember, this thing is completely flat. There's absolutely no normal detail, no nothing. It's a completely flat element. But since we know how to play with light and how to play with this like elements, we can get this very nice result. Okay? So that's it. That's the like sort of like the the basics of all of this hand-painted stuff. It's how we utilize all of this, again, volumes and shades and colors to generate something that looks a little bit more interesting. So for instance, here I'm gonna grab I'm gonna start with like just a general blocking. So I'm gonna grab lighter colors and I'm just gonna start like adding highlights in all of these areas. As you can see, I really like what the artist did here on the concept, where she added a little bit more color and saturation on the center. This is a way to guide our eye, right? Like she wants us to look at that particular area of the character, which is fine. So we're gonna be doing that as well. We're gonna be adding all of this like light values here to tell our audience, in this case you guys, it's like, hey, this is where we want you to look. This is the important area of my character, or in this case, my fish. So I want you to be looking at this particular area. Now, in order to get a little bit more depth, you can see here, for instance, on the gills, right? We're going to add a little bit of a shadow. Going to add a shadow. We're going to change the colors of the shadows and all that stuff in just a second. Right now, again, it's like a blocking. Remember, we always talk about this. Primary forms, secondary forms, tertiary forms. And we want to build up our layers, our elements, in such a way that's easy for us to manage all of these colors. A very common like thing that I see when people are doing anything, texturing, modeling, animation, anything, is that we overcomplicate things. We want to see the final result from the very beginning, and we forget that this is a stage-based approach or a layer-based approach, where if you make sure that the first stages or the first elements of your like process are done well, then it's going to be a lot easier to get a nice result at the end. So don't try to rush the process. Trust the process and understand that if you do step 1 right, step 2 right, step 3 right, then all of the other steps are going to, like, again, blend very, very nicely. Alan Castillo says it will always look bad before it looks good. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a very famous quote. I never saw what's the word? I never saw this series called Adventure Time. You know, I know it's very famous and a lot of people might have seen it, but I never saw that one. And there's a very like cool quote that Jake says, the dog. Is like I think he says something like the first step to being kind of good at something is being very bad at it, or something like that. You guys can Google it, but it's totally true. Like if you want to be proficient at something, the first couple of times you're gonna suck. Like it's gonna be very, very bad, and it's gonna look horrible. But the more you do it, and the more you try, the better you're gonna get, and you're gonna improve, of course. And once you improve, your stuff's gonna start looking a little bit better and a little bit better. That's life. That's life. It applies for everything. Okay, there we go. Now you can see I'm using a hard brush right here. This hard brush, this square brush, I really like it. Again, sort of like a blocking brush. It's kind of like my clay buildup that I normally use inside of ZBrush. I definitely want to add a little bit of highlight here. I'm not going to sample directly. This is something that I was very scared of when I started learning about hand-painted stuff. I was scared of just like sampling the color from the original concept, because to me it felt like cheating. It's like, oh, I'm just taking someone else's work and using it. There's no such thing as cheating. Like, it's just adapting the tools that we have. It's a good idea to understand why certain colors work. For instance, it would be good for me to understand why this yellow, this blue, and this like sort of like beige color are working nicely together, and that comes from color theory. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using the tools that we have. If we already have the concept there, well, let's use it. Let's use the information that we have there to improve our stuff, okay? A lot of people are scared of that we're scared of tools, and we think that using tools is cheating, and it's not. They're tools. It's cheating when you're like stealing someone's work or something like that, but it's not really cheating if you're using all the available tools that you have to your disposal. Seti still says, art direction outlives graphics fidelity. I totally agree. Like, one of my favorite games is Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. And that art style still completely amazing nowadays, right? Like, you can still play that game and it's gonna look freaking fabulous. So yeah, art styles can really outlive graphics. I'm not saying graphics are bad. Like, there's a place for everything, but yeah, understanding that graphics are not everything is important. Let's see. Anik says, hi sir, what do you prefer for VFX art, to texture substance or Mari or 3D code? I'm thinking to learn Mari. Mari is really good if you're gonna be doing a lot of film stuff. Like, if you're gonna be working with really, really high UDIM stuff, then Mari is really good. I used to know Mari. I haven't really, what's the word, like, kept up to date, to be honest. I haven't done a lot of like research or learning about it, so I wouldn't be able to tell you or teach you guys about Mari. Again, I haven't used it in like 8 years or something like that, but still good, like still being used on the industry. If you want to go into VFX and film and things like that, you're probably going to be using Mari a little bit more. Substance is used quite a bit for games, but you can still use it for film depending on what kind of assets. And 3D code, it's a little bit more niche. I've seen more and more people use it, but I definitely know that's a little bit more niche. Yeah, hand-painted is very, very... How many triangles does this model have? That's a great question. I don't remember exactly, but it's very low poly. Here, if you press W instead of 3D code, you get the wireframe. And as you can see, it's very, very low low poly. So I try to keep it as low poly as possible. Okay, now here on the mouth, you can see that I made a mistake inside of substance. And this pink color actually goes here. That's more like it. There we go. And then we can start the blending. So, blending. Oh, blending. Blending is one of those things that can be a little bit time consuming, but it's fun. It's one of those, again, like relaxing things. So, some people like to keep things like this, sort of like very artistic, right? Like you see all of the brush strokes and all of the elements, but usually it's not like super ideal. We want to sort of like soften things up. We can try using a blur or something like that, but ideally you want to use a soft brush like this one right here, and then just grab a value that's close to it and then just blend it a little bit. It's kind of like using a little bit of airbrush to fill in the gaps. This is one way to do it. There's multiple ways to blend stuff. This is one way. Another one, it's a little bit more traditional, is you literally start sampling all of the colors in between the elements and you start like finding the tones until you blend everything. And it, again, requires practice. If you've ever done like shading with pencil or with charcoal or things like that, it takes time. It really takes time to really get in there. Now here I'm going to use a little bit of line art to create like a little wrinkle right there. Right, so a little bit of a dark color. It's going to give me extra detail that we didn't have on the original sculpt, but that should make this thing look a little bit nicer. Kind of like carving. It's there's a very famous like book, and I think it's called Painting with Light or something like that. And that teaches you a lot of those like interesting things that you can do with painting, where you treat it as if it was like a sculpting tool. It's gonna allow you to get some really, really, really nice results. Like, I really like that red line that we got around the eye, so I'm gonna try to keep it. So I'm gonna redo it or redraw it, because that feels like the shadows that we would expect to see on the eye, right? Like the blood and things like that. There's of course gonna be a little bit of bounce light later on. Just wanna like regain or recover that nice light border. So, one thing that I like mention every now and then that really I think gives me a little bit of experience on hand painted stuff is that I paint a lot of like miniatures for D&D. I used to play a game called War Machine and Hordes, sort of like tabletop game. So all of those things, and I've mentioned this before, anything that you do in life can eventually help you in art, because it teaches you skills. So if you've ever painted with like acrylics, or if you painted with like what's the word, oil paintings or anything like that, then if you jump into hand painted, you're gonna have a nice like easier time. There we go. Also, if you've done any sort of like digital illustration, right, like 2D painting in Photoshop or like concept art, like all of those things really transfer into this. And most of the people that I've talked that do like hand painted for a living, they mention that they say that they feel more like illustrators than 3D modelers because of how much like information they need to do this. Let's see. Mari non-commercial is free with certain limitations. Yeah, I haven't tried it. There's something about putting on some lo-fi music and doing hand painted textures. It's a vibe. Yeah, totally a vibe. Is it necessary to have the knowledge of 3D Codify No Substance Painter? If you're going to be doing 3D paint or 3D hand painted stuff, then yes, I would say that you eventually will need to do this. But if you're not going to be doing hand painted stuff, if you're just going to be doing, again, like traditional PBR stuff and techniques, not necessarily. Like, I didn't learn 3D code until I started learning about like hand painted stuff. Yeah, we got the fish here. Okay, so now we are going to push the values here a little bit higher. And we're going to start hitting some of the corners or the borders of the elements. This is going to separate them even more, right, from the main shape, from the main area. And it's going to give us a little bit more volume. We got Mustafa here with the sub. Hey, man, what's up? Thanks for the resub there. Awesome. Now, we haven't even started talking about materials yet. We're going to do that a little bit later after we got some, like, nice indication of these things right here. But material, sort of like painting, is going to be another important part for this particular asset, because we need to make sure some parts look a little bit more glossy, right? Like if they're wet. So we're going to be adding that soon. Now, see how this line looks very harsh, right? Like, this means that the value from this highlight that I added is a little bit too intense compared to the value that we have here on the other side. So we need to blend it a little bit more. We need to find a more like uniform distribution of these things, because when we have very intense separation from one value to the other, we might get a different result than what we want. And again, here I'm just like blending very, very traditionally, just like sampling the colors constantly and finding the values that we need so that looks a lot better. And look at this. This is what we had from Substance Painter, and this is what we've done so far with just like a couple of minutes of hand painted sort of like approach. So this is the beauty of hand painted stuff, that we can get a lot of information very quickly that really pushes things to the next level. And we were talking about this the other day, right? About AI and how, yes, we're getting more tools like the stylized filter in Substance. The stylized filter in Substance is still not doing this. It's still not doing this like approach just yet. There we go. Nice. And I soften up this volumes over here a little bit more because I feel like they're a little bit too dark. I don't mind having dark, contrasty spaces, but I do want to keep them a little bit softer. I can see, like, look at the value there. Like, it's very, very light. So we definitely need to push this a little bit more. In terms of value and then colors, I always try to keep things within a certain range. I don't like to push them very, very high, because if you push them very high or very low, then there's no more room to adjust, right? Like, you're pretty much left with that value or with that level, and you need to work with that. So it's a good idea to sort of like keep your colors and your values controlled first, and then at the end, if you want to like make things a little bit more contrasty or less contrasty, we can change that. And I'm constantly looking at the reference. I'm looking at where the high points are, where the high values are, to find that and blend that here into my character. It's a good idea to think about how this thing is going to look in the game. So I'm definitely imagining this up there with something else, right? Let's see. What brushes do you use? I'm just using the basic brushes here inside of 3D Code, man. Like, this is just a square brush. It's this one right here. And that's all I'm doing. Now there's a dark line here going across this area, sort of like separating things a little bit. Then we have the yellow here. Again, just a blend. Just a very sort of like abstract blend right here. Will you add the ambient occlusion? Yeah, so the ambient occlusion is right here. So at any point, I can just turn it on. The only thing I don't like about the ambient occlusion is that it makes it very, very contrasty, right? So it's a good map. We will be using it, but we will be like using it slightly different, okay? For instance, the eye we actually did inside of like, what's the word? Inside of Substance. And the filters that we get here for the eye are not bad. So, as you can see, like, tools can definitely help us. But look at this. I'm gonna do a trick here with the eye, guys. I think you guys are gonna love it. So, where is the light coming from on this particular element? Where is the light coming from on the fish? Very easy question. Coming from the top, right? Like, we're thinking about a top light coming here into the fish, like eyes and everything. And we can actually see like the reflection. That could be like a skylight or like a rectangular light or something like that. So if we think about the iris and we want to give the iris a little bit more volume, I can think of the iris. Imagine a side view, right? I can think of the iris of doing something like this, right? This is where the eye is. Or I can think of the iris of doing something like this. Both of them work, but they're going to give us a different effect. I'm going to think of the iris in this particular case as going like this. So we're going to have two heels on the iris and then sort of like the dark area right here. So if we have those two heels, I can grab this color right here. I'm going to saturate it and brighten up a little bit. And I'm going to add a little bit of light information right here. Okay. Again, imagine this is like a ridge. So we're getting the hit of the light on that particular area. Okay. And we can make it even a little bit more intense. Very punctual right there. Right? So now this thing gives us the impression that it's like a donut. And then on this area right here, we can darken it just a tad bit. Not too much, but just a tad bit right there. And that's going to start giving me sort of like a three-dimensionality effect on the effect. Even though this is completely flat. This is the beauty of digital painting and the beauty of drawing, that we can like generate volume where there's no volume. And then we go to the opposite side and we're going to have the opposite effect. We're going to get more light on this area, right, on the inside of the donut. And we're going to get less light on this area, the outside of the donut. And that's how we can create a three-dimensional, sort of like a looking shape on the eye. right? And then we can tweak. We can be like, hey, you know what? Maybe that's a little bit too intense. Let me sort of like smooth it, flatten it a little bit so that it's not as such a heavy sort of like donut. But we can change that, like from a flat effect to something that looks a little bit more three-dimensional, right? And then, sort of like the magic point right here is going for the very high highlights, like the very intense highlights. And we add a little bit of those highlights in certain areas. Really pushing the sort of like contrast effect, right? That's one of the things that we can do. And all of this is happening on just one texture map. That's like one of the magical things about, again, hand-painted stuff. This is like a bounce light that I added right there, like a very diffuse or like bounce light. Make the eye look a little bit glossier. And I'm going to show you a couple of tricks a little bit later on how to push that even further. But yeah. Yeah, this is 3D code, man. This is 3D code. Well, this is, yeah, just 3D textura. That's right. Just 3D textura. Okay, so looking cool, right? Like so far, I think we got a nice sort of like uniform looking base coat of paint on the elements, still looking a little bit messy on the inside. But from this, which was what we had on Substance Painter, just like the basing blocking to this, which is already sort of like pushing values a little bit nicer. But one of the things that I'm noticing, and this is very, very common when we're painting, is that we tend to go or get very sort of like uniform values. Okay, or not uniform values, uniform hues on our elements. What does a hue? What does hue mean? You guys tell me. Now I feel like I'm in class, actually like asking my students, but that's fun, right? So what is a hue? That's right, Alan. A hue is a color. It's a tone, right? It's what we perceive from the elements. So this right here is a red hue. This right here is also a red hue. This right here is also a red hue. It's the exact same red hue at different values and different like saturations, but it's the red hue, like the exact same red hue. So if I sample these colors, right, if I start sampling all of this like beige colors, you're gonna see that, look at, I want you to look at this dot right here. Hopefully my camera is not covering it. Actually, let me move it so you guys can see it. Look at this dot right here, okay? So if I sample all of these colors, that dot is barely moving, right? That means that all of the hues that I have in this area, regardless of the value, are in a very similar area. Same for the blues. Look at the point right here now. All of the blues right there on a very similar area. That's a little bit boring. It's not ideal for what we have. So I'm going to create a new layer here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample this value right here, but I'm going to change its hue. I'm going to go for this sort of like hue right here. And what I can do is use the exact same hue and introduce that hue on, let's say, the darker areas, the darker tones. So I'm changing the hue of the blue color, sort of like blended with some of the areas of the fish. Right now it looks like shit, I know. It looks horrible. It looks like I'm like a kid messing up his drawing. My little girl, she says she wants to be an artist now. She's on her artist phase, so she likes to paint and draw all the time. And she's been getting really good at it. She now like follows everything within the lines and things like that. But every now and then she just gets desperate and just ruins a picture that she's like working on. It's very, very fun to see. Anyway, so as you can see, I'm adding this hue all around this like element, or all around this like top part of the character. And this is where the blending modes are really, really useful, because I can go, for instance, to something like, let's say, let's try a multiply. And hey, that's going to give us some interesting tones right there, right? Some interesting shadows that will blend with the rest of the elements. We can try something like an overlay. Overlay will brighten the colors. It will take the color information into consideration. As you can see, that also looks quite interesting. We can go even, there's one that only focuses on color. This one right here, the color blending mode. It will ignore saturation and it will ignore lightness, and it will just focus on the color. And as you can see, that blends it very, very nicely. It gives it's gonna sound very weird what I'm about to say, but it's a way to make your colors look a little bit more juicy, right? Like they look a little bit more interesting, because instead of having the exact same color on one side, you're actually adding a little bit of more value. And then of course we can play with the opacity, right? Like find a nice like opacity tone right here that's gonna allow me to get something that looks or blends a little bit more nicely. And that's it. Once we have this, for instance here, I do want to add a little bit of that like blue hue here on the hills, maybe here on the border, right? So I'm pretty much hitting the shadow areas of the color. Here we go. And once I'm happy there, I can just right click this. I can keep it like a layer, but usually I don't like keeping blending mode layers on because it confuses me on what each one is doing. So I like to use this option that says apply layer blending, and it makes it so that it's now a standard blend. And now I can grab both of this like layers right here. Oh. Two. What am I doing? One right here, and I'm gonna do a merge down. There we go. So now this is what we have. Did I lock? Oh man. Sure, what did I freak? I'm doing this thing called the transparency clipping. Get rid of it. Don't remember where it was. Let me move. Yeah, this is like Photoshop on 3D. That's right. Well, let me save before anything bad happens. Save this as desktop. Here, let's call this fish. An option here. Oh man, I'm gonna have to add. No, it's not Control C because it's a selection mode that I added here. Okay, there we go. It's Control and click on a layer, and then Control click on a different layer, and that's it. Make sure, yeah, there we go. So look at that. Look at how much more visually interesting my fish has become thanks to this thing right here, right? Now we get a lot of more like interesting colors. And the same thing can be done on the lower section. Now on the lower section here on the actual element, we can do either a yellowish tone or we can do a purplish tone. And we can try. That's the cool thing about this. So again, I'm going to create a new layer. And I'm going to go this exact same value, this sort of like dark value. We're going to change the tone. I think a yellow tone might be interesting. Let's grab something like this. And we are going to be adding that again on the like the shadow areas, right? Very rough right now. You guys know how I like to to work on my stuff. I'm a very sort of like chaotic worker, and then I like to go in and polish stuff. So I'm gonna be adding all of this like yellow hues and yellow elements. And again, try a blending mode. Color mode worked very nicely a couple of seconds ago. That's not bad. Let me try overlay. I actually like overlay on this one a little bit more. And I'm gonna bring the opacity down so we get a little bit of the indication of that sort of like yellow hue-ish colors, but it's not that bad, right? And then right click, we apply layer modes or apply blending modes. Right click, apply layer blending, and then right click, merge down. Some people don't like merging things down. They like to keep things like separate. I do like to merge them down to keep all of the like important information on one layer. And there we go. So yeah, look at the difference. Again, this is what we had on the on Substance Painter, just like the basic construction of our elements, which was what we finished with the other element. And now we're really bringing in the color. We're really bringing in the value, and we're adding all of the information that we need. Now we can start with a little bit of the polishing stage. We can start like cleaning things up. For instance, this gill right here is getting a very intense curvature, and it's very long compared to that one right there. So we just use paint to erase that. Just paint to delete that element and blend all of the elements. And since now we have the yellow colors right here, we can sample those yellow colors and get some interesting, like, again, details right there as well. Let's see. Looks like another level. Yeah, that's the trick with everything in art, guys. The more you polish, the more you get. So here I'm gonna clean this gill. I really clean it. Get like a nice sharp like result right there. Same on this one. And as you can see, I don't like using dark colors like black, like pure black to do my shading, because then pure black, there's no way to go any lower if you need to. So I like using this sort of like dark brown color first. You can see this doesn't go all the way up, so let's erase that with paint again. Blend this together. Can sample a little bit of that yellow, get it in there, right? Let's see. I tend to love hand painted texture in ZBrush. Yeah, ZBrush is probably the closest one, I would say. I don't particularly love ZBrush either, but you can do poly paint inside of ZBrush, and that can work. So for instance here, since this thing is actually geometry, I'm gonna use the geometry as my guide to know where this hill should be. Pressing W there to really bring all of this color. And then underneath it, you can see that this thing is like a darker tone. Where the hill would be. So this tells me that this area, it's a little bit too dark. So I'm going to again use my value here with a slightly different hue. And then we're gonna get the mouth. Yeah, so it's kind of like carving. Again, it's using colors and carving the different planes to really indicate where things are going to be. Let's see. Kind of other topic, but did you finish the dragon head? Never got to see it finished. No, not yet. Haven't been able to finish it. It's still sitting there on my workbench. But it's a project that I need to finish. I definitely need to finish. I started doing the paint, I started with like the red coat of paint, and it's looking nice. But no, I haven't finished it yet. I actually haven't printed anything in the past couple of months. It's a little bit of a shadow there for the mouth. And then you can see we have a lot of like dirty looking polygons there. So I'm just going to simplify them with like a shadow. We would not expect this part of the mouth to be as highlighted as anything else, but I'm adding a little bit of a highlight there. It's not going to be anything. Maybe finish it next year. No, it needs to be finished this year, man. Oh, I definitely need to finish. It's fun. Painting and sculpting in ZBrush is surprisingly and fundamentally similar to a matter of thinking shapes, fun painting and sculpting. Yeah. I think you repeated the message right there, but yeah. Color itself is a very wide topic, like color spaces and spectrum of colors. Okay, so color spaces are a little bit different, man. Color spaces are used a little bit more in like color grading. For this kind of stuff, if you're going to be doing hand-painted stuff, my advice is learn about colors in traditional like painting techniques. Again, oil painting, acrylic paintings, wash, like all of these elements, they teach how to use color effectively, how to mix it, how to like find the proper like values and things like that. And it's a good way to get into like the to understand the general like principles of color, I would say. If you've like when I went to Noman, there was this class that I took that was called Viscom, Visual Communication, and we learned about perspective, we learned about values, we learned about like a line weight, all of those things. Very, very useful as well for all of this. So in my journey in learning all of this hand-painted stuff, one of the things that I've realized is the more you know about traditional art, the better it's gonna be for you, because you can understand a lot of this like very cool things. Any good recommendations for color theory books? I recently finished a very common one. It's Color and Light, I think it's called. Color and Light. This one, yeah. Color and Light, a guide for the realistic painting by James Gurney. This one's really good. This one's also really good. Artist Master Series Color and Light. But this one, the James Gurney one, it taught me a lot of like really, really interesting things about like color. It's a relatively light reading. Like it's not super in-depth, but it teaches you like some basic concepts that are, again, very, very good. Will you paint the AI shadows? No, I'm not going to paint them. I already have them. These are the AO right here. As you can see, we have them on the top layer. This is the map that we baked from Substance Painter. It's a good way to sort of like blend everything together. Can you guys see the difference right there? Like it really helps sort of like get everything in line. So it gives us a sort of very professional look, I would say. But I don't want to use it until it's like absolutely necessary. So until the very, very end. Okay. So now I think we can jump. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing great on time. I thought we were moving a little bit slower, but no, we're doing great. So now I think we can jump a little bit into material definition, right? So what do I mean by material definition? Well, the skin of the fish, it can be, or we can make it look a little bit more like shiny. Let's start with the eye. The eye is a very simple one. And the reason why the eye is so simple is because we can just sample, again, the sort of like very like clean white color here. Where's my color palette? Windows, panels, color palette. There we go. And I'm actually gonna go really, really, really high here on the colors, on the tones. I'm gonna add it right there, right? So if we start adding this sort of like elements or details, that's gonna make it look as if something it's a little bit shinier, right? Like that's how we know an object is shinier, if we see some of the reflections from the world on the object. And that little like very basic like square effect right there can really help us see that difference. A little trick here is we can actually use something like linear dodge to really push the color like over, right, to the next level. So that's gonna really make it shine really, really, really intense right there. And it should make it look like this eye is a little bit glossier than it actually is, right? So that's one way to help us with the material description. Like if people look at that, it should look very, very shiny. The softer the shadow or the softer the highlight, the more sort of like matte or plasticky the element is going to look. So let me delete that layer and show you that on the actual like fish. So I'm gonna add a new layer, and this layer I do like to keep it separate from the other layers so that I have a little bit more control. So if I take a look at this curvature right here, one of the things that I can do, again, if I want to push this material and make it look less flat and a little bit more shiny, is I can sample the exact same color. I'm gonna push it a little bit higher. I'm gonna change the hue again. As always, just change the hue a little bit so that we get something that looks a little bit more interesting. And we can start painting the sort of like the specular effect of the element right there. Just like that. If we paint it again very diffusely like this, right, what we're gonna get is a very diffuse sort of like plasticky effect. You see that? Right? If then I decide, no, I want this to be very, very shiny, very glossy, I can push this a little bit higher and then paint a very sort of like intense little dot there on the center. Again, sort of like reflecting the specific like element or the specific object. And there we go. Now, this little layer right there is really helping me push that specific area to make it look like it's glossier than the rest of the object. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Because that's one of the techniques that we can use to do a little bit of like material description here. Any way to see values? I found a way, which is to do a fill layer. So I'm gonna add a new layer here. New layer. I'm gonna call this layer values. And then I'm gonna go to my fill layer, or my fill option. Where is it? Fill here. And I'm gonna fill this with like a dark color. I'm just gonna fill everything. There we go. Go back to the brush. And then if we set this layer to saturation, we're using that as a mask to just like destroy everything. And there we go. Now, this is a great question, by the way. Thank you, Anthony, for the question, because values are always going to be kinks. Like the most important thing in anything that we do in terms of texturing, and this applies for PBR texturing as well, is values, how we see the values. So by adding this layer, I can quickly check whether my values or not are being built towards that like very high, like top value right there. And if we are getting that, then it's a lot easier to see. If you turn on your value layer like this one right here, and you see things are not looking good, like if you don't see the actual volumes of the fish or the actual like elements, that means you're doing something wrong. So using this trick, and I use this trick everywhere, again, Substance, Photoshop, everywhere, using a layer with saturation, like saturation layer here to check your values is very, very important. You know where I also use this technique quite a bit? In rendering. When you're rendering, if you set your saturation all the way down to 0, and Blender has this, Maya has this, you can really see your composition. You really see where the light is, where the different planes are being drawn, what things are having more of a spatial weight to them or like a compositional weight to them. So this right here, guys, this is gold. If you've never used values to your advantage, you've now learned something super, super important, because being able to understand values and understand how important they are a fundamental thing for every like visual artist out there. So yeah, there we go. So I think the values there are looking quite nice. I'm going to start adding a little bit more of those highlights. Now, we're not going to add highlights everywhere. Again, we need to think about where our light source is. So if our light source is up here, then we're going to see more of this sort of like values and highlights on some particular areas of the fish, but not everywhere. So I'm not going to draw a line of highlights all the way around. I might just hit some like important steps right here. Right? Actually, let me do something here. Where is it? At my view. The thing is, I had to reinstall everything here. So missing some of my shortcuts, but I have a shortcut to isolate. There we go. To isolate just the fish so that I don't have to paint on the wood panels. Oh, back to brush. For instance, here I'm gonna go just to like the very, very high points of the tail, which is the area that would catch the highlight glossiness a little bit more. And we can add a little bit of that over here as well. But you need to imagine that this is again like a gradient, so not everything is going to be highlighted. Let's see. The chat on YouTube got quiet. You guys gone, or is the class very interesting? I hope the class is very interesting today. It's fun because I've tried to pitch this class at the university I work on. It's like, hey, I really want to teach hand painted stuff. Let me do a class, and they're like, oh, but it's very niche. Students need something that's a little bit more general. It's like, oh yeah, I know, but it's so fun. Let me ditch it. And they're like, we'll see if we do like a workshop or something. So maybe in the future. Now, as we get lower and lower, we will get that highlight. It's gonna be softer, right? Because there's other things like in the way, pretty much. Clean all of this. Nice, Jonathan. That's awesome. Mo2Man, the Mexican, says, how long did it take you to make that prop? If it's much, how come a whole scene or environment's done is fairly... No, this is not much. So the fish itself, like the modeling of the fish, took us like 2.5 hours. Like the sculpting, the retopo, the UVs, and the basic colors. And so far, we've invested another like maybe hour in this one on the basic paints. I would say something like this. Like if this was a paid project right now, this one would be like an 8-hour project. Like if you're working at Blizzard and they tell you, hey, you need to do this, you probably need to finish this in a day. So it is fast, right? But again, this is a relatively simple asset. You might not need to even sculpt it or anything. You can just do it like, okay. So now for the scales here, I'm gonna try doing a couple of like glossy little points right there. And this can be as defined or as abstract as you want. Again, depending on the project, you might need to be a little bit more clean or a little bit more or like artistic or messy. It really depends. But by adding these points right here, you can see how we're blending all of this information and generating a different sort of like feel, right? No, the chat is working. There you go. Use something like then you use sometimes styles and paint, like in this case fish. Yeah, we can do that. You guys want me to show you how we could do that? That's actually a trick that someone from Blizzard shared a little while ago. So let me show you what we can do here. Let me save real quick, and I'm gonna do File, and there's an option here inside of 3D Code to export this to Photoshop. So I can use this option that says Edit all layers in External Editor. I'm gonna click on that one. And what this one should do, it's the first time I'm doing it since I installed this on the computer, so I might need a little bit of setup. Now, there we go. So it's gonna open Photoshop, and it's gonna import all of the layers that we have here on our fish, right? So as you can see, all of the layers are here. This is the base layer, the main layer, all of the layers. So this is our UV map or our texture map so far, which is great because it's a very easy way to do it. But what I can do here to, again, help me a little bit is I can look for fish scales, right? And I'm going to find stuff like this, which all of them have a little bit of glossiness, a little bit of information. So I would say something like this looks very nice, right? I think this is like 3D or something, but it really doesn't matter. So I'm gonna copy this image. I'm gonna bring it here into Photoshop. And I'm gonna position them where I need them. So let's say right around there. And then let's drag them down here. This is where, of course, knowing Photoshop is really important. I'm gonna use an eraser. Go to erase all of the scales that I don't need. All of the ones down here. Go. I think they're a little bit big, so I'm gonna make them a little bit smaller. There we go. And then we can use blending modes again. Something like, oh, that one looks very nice. Soft light, right? And even play a little bit with the opacity. I might blur them a little bit, so I'm gonna go filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And it's just a general idea of where the elements are going to be. That's it. I just save this. And if I go back to 3D Code, there we go. We have the scales right there, right? So that gives me a little bit of an easier time, because now, since I know where the scales are, I can add just like the little highlight on the border of the scale and keep working from there. You should start a mini-series on YouTube called Photoshop for 3D Artists. That's not a bad idea. It's actually a really good idea. Alan says, if this was for a paid project and right now they tell you they will be animating, how would you approach the retopo for animation and applying the use to the new UVs to the new topology? I would probably need to do a retopology, so I would need to change some loops, and then I would just reproject. Hey, did you see the video that I did a couple of weeks ago on Marmoset on how to transfer maps? I would do that. I would just like transfer the maps from this one to the new topology. Now here, my task, right, or my main homework is to try to find the proper values to continue adding the sort of like scale effect, or just go back to Photoshop and duplicate the texture a little bit more. And this is the thing, again, I was mentioning about cheating, right? Like a lot of people might be like, oh, you're cheating because instead of drawing every scale by hand, you're using a texture to draw the scales. In production, there's no such thing as cheating. If this saves time and if this saves money, that's it. You do it. No questions asked. You just do it, again, as long as you're not like stealing or hurting anyone. Ideally, in an ideal world, as an artist, it will be very valuable if you know how to do this by hand. But sometimes in production, you're not going to have the time to learn how to do something traditionally. So you're going to have to use any tool to your advantage and adapt, right? Yeah, exactly, Dread Shadow, as you say. If this is cheating, using alphas is cheating, using a series measure is cheating, using Dynamesh is cheating, so... But you would be surprised about how many people out there will see things or tools or techniques like this and be like, oh, that's cheating. I'm never going to use that. Photo bashing would be cheating. So yeah. I guess my main point with that is don't let anyone tell you what is cheating and what's not cheating. Again, if it works for you and you're not hurting anyone and it works for the project, you're good. Yeah, look at that. So again, with this layer now, we're adding all of the values, right, that we would need. I'm gonna merge the layers here, so I'm gonna merge down, and look at that. That's without the sort of like highlight effect, and that's adding a little bit of highlight. And we're gonna be adding a little bit more highlight in a little bit later today. So that's the highlight for the blue areas. And now since we're still in this layer, the highlight layer, let's add a little bit of highlight for the dark areas or for the white areas. Let's see. Wait, how? Breathing is also cheating. Let's see. Hi, Abe. Will I benefit from your marvelous course if my goal is to create 10 tarp? Yes, totally, man. Actually, one of the first exercises, I think it's free. You can watch it on the first couple of chapters. We do like a tablecloth. So yeah, you can definitely benefit from that, man. Yeah, you guys know, when I do my courses, one of the things that I like to do is, of course, we do a project, but I always teach the tools, right? So the tools are my main focus when doing a course. Like, I want to give you guys the tools so that you can apply them to whatever project it is you need to do. So on the Marvelous one, even though we do the Plague Doctor, you will learn all of the necessary tools for any other thing that you might need to do later on. I'm gonna diffuse this glow a little bit more, or this highlight. Again, let's do this. I remember in the past I went to join an art school, and when I talk about digital art, they banned me from here because it's not art. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's always gonna be an opinion war going on. And there's some things that are worth fighting for. Like, for instance, copyright issues with AI. Like, that's a very important thing that we're gonna see more and more in the next few years, I believe. But then there's others that are like, dude, come on. Now, what I love about hand painted is it does become very relaxing. I feel like I literally feel like a kid going back and just like drawing for fun. It's a really, really cool process. Now, I'm gonna show you a technique in just a second. I'm gonna add a little bit more variation to all of these things. Look at that. Even this one's like, I'm not using the same sort of like what's the word, scale technique that we use, but even just like poking or just adding a little bit of texture here with this lighter values, especially when seen from afar, is really giving us the texture that we want, right? Definitely pushing this. Sometimes, and this works a lot as well in sculpting, right? When we're doing art, it's about what we, how to say this, it's how people perceive. It's about perception, right? So I don't need to do every single scale perfectly, like hyper realistic and everything, if people perceive this to be made out of scales, right? Same with marble. Like when you see marble statues, they're not made out of skin or stone or wood or whatever, but the things that they depict and the way that they depict them, it makes us perceive them as if they were done with something a lot more organic. That's art. It's faking stuff to make it look good. Again, by using values here, again, we turn our values, you can see how we're adding a little bit more values on this particular area. By playing with those values, you can really push this to the next level. Martin, what's up, man? All good, all good. Having a lot of fun today, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie, I'm enjoying this. You know, I was gonna share this. I think I've done the least amount of 3D in the past month that I've done in all my life. Like, I barely opened my softwares because I was doing a lot of like administration work, like business stuff, accounting. Like, I just like had to focus on doing that for a project that we had here at the studio. And Fridays have always been like a godsend to me because it's like, okay, I know I'm gonna stream, and now I'm gonna be able to just do 3D, focus on 3D. One of the little side effects of having to do this kind of stuff. Now, here's a little trick. This one, if we turn this to, again, to like linear dodge or color dodge, it will really make things shiny. This looks more metallic, right? Look at that. That's linear dodge or color dodge. Linear dodge is going to give us a little bit more of without colors. This is why color dodge is usually better, because we are using the colors. And we could play with the intensity here to find something that is a little bit higher contrast than what we had before, okay? So if we set this to just normal, it looks very dull. Even if we keep this at a very high opacity, it's gonna look relatively dull, relatively flat. But if we change this to color dodge, we can really get that very nice, like a shiny effect of the scales, even like metallic effect, right, on some of the elements. I think 45 might be a little bit too much. This is again where art direction comes into play, and you can decide where you want to have that specific value. But look at the difference. That's without any sort of like shiny effect, and then that's with a little bit of that like you can like color dodge effect to really push the values. Let's see. How will you do the dark edges? What dark edges? These ones are shadows. We can do them with ambient occlusion. Like ambient occlusion is definitely one way we can bring that like contrast back in. But I mentioned earlier on the stream, Saf C237, that I'm probably not gonna be using this one as is. I'm gonna be like just modifying it a little bit. Now, I actually can see a little bit of a mistake that I did here with the color. So I'm gonna go back to the color layer, and you can see that on the tail, there's a little bit more lightness going on. So I need to lighten this up. Even the blue colors right here, they actually go into like a teal color. Bring those elements here. We want to follow the concept as closely as possible. Blend all of these colors in there. Not bad. Let's see. I've gotten pretty good at modeling, but I struggle with textures. I mainly want to do stylized texture. Please recommend me where I should learn it. Maybe a course or video. We do have a course for Substance Painter, and it's I would say a very nice course. It's actually one of our best sellers there on the site. And if you don't know anything about textures, that's a perfect way to start, my friend Aviral. After that, it will depend on it specifically what kind of like again, like stylized effect you mean, because hand painted stylized is one thing, PBR stylized is another thing, cell shading stylized is another thing. So it really changes. Yeah, there you go. David just linked the course for you, my friend. It has a little bit of blue here on the bottom section as well. Not too much, so I'm just gonna sort of like included on the general tones and hues. Remember how we talked about this? Wolfgirl says, hey, could you make a video about Rism? I've seen you use it a couple times, but it's a little hard to apply to my own stuff. Yeah, I'll do something about it. I actually haven't installed it on this new build. I need to download it again. I do have my license and everything. It's just that I haven't used it. I normally cut and lay out the basic UVs in Maya, and then if I need something very specific or a better packing, that's where Rism really comes into play. I think this one's a little bit high still, so lower the color there a little bit. Don't do a bit of cell shaded effect. You never even do an anime sculpt. Yeah, no. I'm just mentioning that those are like topics that this other friend could focus on. No, that's not my style. I don't usually do those kind of like sculpts. So yeah, it's not really my area of expertise, and that's fine, by the way, guys. Like that's another thing that I see very young artists struggle with. Like they think they need to be good at everything. No, that's not it. When will you continue Female Thor? Soon. I just wanted to finish this one because I haven't finished the project in a while. It's like, oh, I really need to finish something. So we'll continue with Thor soon. Okay, so now, again, I'm going to grab this layer, and I'm going to right-click, apply layer blending, and right-click merge down, so that everything is in a single layer. And we can compare. Look at that. Look at the big change right here. Basic colors, hand-painted stuff. Basic colors, hand-painted stuff. Quite the difference, right? I would say. I think we're seeing quite the difference. Yes, I was able to get the file out of my hard drive. Okay. Cool, so the fish is pretty much, well, no, I wouldn't say pretty much ready, but it's in a very good position. Let's work a little bit on some of the other elements. So let me get them back. Here with the hide option. It's on hide all. There we go. Let's do this one. This one's going to be fun. Gold is fun. Metals are fun because metals work a little bit different than everything else. So I'm going to hide that one here. Invert hidden faces. Oh, is it taking us a single one? It's taking as a single one. That's really weird. Okay. Never mind. Let's just not hide. I'm gonna press W to see the actual edges. And let's bring our thing over here. There we go. So for gold, I'm gonna start with a base color. It's like brown color here. The new layer. I'm gonna paint that. We can just fill, by the way. Let's just use. And then we're gonna start. When I'm doing metals, I like to start with the dark tones first. So I'm gonna go darker there on the brown. I'm gonna paint all of this area right here. I'm just gonna follow the concept here for the reflections. All of this area. And then here, it's gonna be like a gradient. So we're gonna start dark, and then we're gonna go into light, like a lighter tone. We do want to keep the borders very sharp, opposed to the fish where things were a little bit more organic. This one should be less organic. This side one is going to be, again, like a darker tone, but not as dark as the one on the bottom. Okay, something like that. And then you can see we have a very cool reflection going on right here on the center. So I'm going to use this color right here. I'm gonna fill in this area. This here. This. Again, values. This is all about values. Okay. And then, as you can see, one of the things that's gonna make gold very gold-like is the shine. We're gonna have a very intense highlight. This area right here. That. And then we're gonna see sort of like a bandings. So we're gonna see the different like hues or bands. That when we see it from afar, it really looks like it's like shining and it has a strong reflection. Yeah, it's kind of like metalware. That's right. Here, one a little bit here on the corner. This is one way to do it. Some people like when they were doing like gold and things like that, they like to go and do everything in black and white first, and then switch to colors. Different methods. Saturated here. Now, for instance, I'm going to do a little bit of reflection here. Side. I'm going to delete the main color right there because I'm going to show you something a little bit different. I'm going to do everything low first. And again, I can imagine that there's going to be a little bit of a harder highlight here on the bottom part. Now look at this. So that looks okay-ish. Not great yet. Looks okay-ish. And a little bit more glow over here. You kind of wish you could live in that World of Warcraft. That would be cool. Yeah, World of Warcraft has always been a huge inspiration for hand painted textures, right? Oh. A bit more of a darker color on this side for the contrast. Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna add a new layer. I'm gonna grab this color. I'm gonna push it really, really high. And that's gonna be my glow, right? Like my metallic glow right there. I'm gonna hit all of the borders where I would expect this thing to be a bit more like a gold effect. Kind of like middle edge where as someone was saying. And then we set this to color dodge as well. Right? Of course, we're not gonna go with full opacity. Or like lower it down. But we can use that to really get the tone that we're sort of like looking for. Yeah, color dodge is great. We can actually, this one I think I'm gonna go linear dodge. No, color dodge was looking a little bit better because of the orangey color. A little bit like bronze. Right? Something like that. And then, again, right click, apply layer blending, right click, merge down. And from here, we can build up the next value, which is going to be like a very sort of like light value right there. Very sharp. Final value. Actually, I think I'm going to go for more like a yellowish hue. Clean the edges a little bit right there. We can see, for instance, on this one, definitely see a little bit of a shadow. Oh. Here on the back. Goes to the front. But yeah, exactly. Color dodge is one way to really push some of the values. Make it shine a little bit more. I don't like that's a little bit orange, to be honest. And again, if I check my values are okay. But I don't like how this one is looking. So, what can we do? Yeah, because values I actually do like. At least I think we're not bad in values. But tones, I don't like the tones. The orange feels too much. Yeah, we definitely need to desaturate this a little bit. There is an option to do that. Here we have layers. Layers. Where was it? For whatever reason, this one does not have as many options as others. There we go. Image. Here, hue, saturation, and darkness. And I'm gonna select preview, and let's bring the saturation down a little bit. Hue a little bit, not too much. There we go, something like that. Yeah, I think that looks nice. Definitely looks a little bit like gold, which is the intention. Can you just change? Yeah, I could go into Photoshop, or I could just keep it here. I'm just gonna clean it up a little bit. Metal, hair, like there's a lot of like materials that definitely require quite a bit of work. Usually the materials are a little bit flatter, like plastics, wood, things like that. Those tend to be a lot easier. This material definitions here can really be a little bit tricky. And I'm following this because that's like the general shape that we see on the concept. But eventually we would like write something in there, right? We'll have some letters or something. I feel like the darks might be a little bit too dark. Fill them in with a little bit more color. I have a question. Are textures like in Genshin Impact made on 3D code? No, those are mostly shaders, I think. Those are mostly shaders. Again, to be honest, I'm not that like I haven't really done any like anime style like renders and stuff, so I'm not sure how they do it. But at least from what I've seen, there's not a lot of texture on the textures, right? Like they're very flat. It's more like the cell shaded effect that you see on the game. Gonna again clean the border here. Really help tell the effect that we want to have. Especially here on this lower border. We really want to be really intense on the cut. so that it really feels like it's there's a division between them. Boom. It's the planes, right? Going back to what we saw at the beginning. Want to make sure that the planes look... There we go. I like that. That looks nice. Having trouble making crystals, gem materials, and substance painter. Yeah, the reason why you're having troubles there, Fut, is because the issue with those is that they are more a material thing rather than a texture thing. So you're gonna have to deal with that in the shader department, not really on the texturing department. Okay. 97, thank you, man, for the sub. 9 months already. Awesome. Again, materials are made out of 3 different things, man. Materials are the textures that you use, the shader that you modify, and that's going to be on the engine that you decide to use, and finally the what's the word? The light information in your scene. All of those things. So that's a great question, Rishav. They should work. AMD GPUs should work with most softwares. You might not have the exact same performance that you might have with another type of what's the word? With another type of or with an NVIDIA GPU, but they should work. Okay, let's jump to the wood here. Yeah, the new layer. As you can see, we have a little bit of a problem with the wood, and that's the fact that we have sort of like the information of the fish sort of like baked in. So I'm just gonna sort of like blend it in and simplify it a little bit. Don't want to have that information there. Why? Because again, if you think about the game, right? Let's always put ourselves in the situation of thinking how this asset's gonna be used in a game. If this asset's going to be in a game, and let's say there's a quest, right, where you need to fish the fish, you're going to need to catch the fish with a freaking fishing rod or whatever, then this plate might be on the bar or on the trophy hall or whatever without the fish. So we need to have no information of the fish being here. And then when you catch the fish, you will like bring this in right here. So this is what we need to do right now. We need to like fill this in and make sure that we don't have any extra information than what we have. We also need to simplify things. So for instance, here, that's a corner. Let's paint that corner complete with the color that we want. This is a little bit of the problem that we have with Metal Edgeware, right? Where it's everywhere. So let's simplify. Doesn't mean that we can't use the tools that we got from Substance. As you can see here, Substance gave us a really nice start, but we should always have sort of like the final say on this kind of things and decide where we want to have the details. That's what we want. El Cibra, thanks for the follow, man, and welcome to the stream. For instance, here on this upper like wooden beams, I'm gonna add a little bit of a highlight on the wood grains, right? This area right here, so that we can really see what's going on. We got some like interesting texture again that we got from Substance Painter, but I don't want to have all that texture there. Simplify a little bit. And that's a lot easier to work without the fish right now. So we can focus only on these elements. And you can see how much difference it makes, right? Like just like going in there and actually adding our own sort of like touch can really, really help. Now I'm gonna use my color palette, Windows palette. There we go. I'm gonna grab a lighter tone right here, a little bit more desaturated. I'm gonna start adding a little bit more light to this like upper areas of the element. Always fading in direction or in the direction of the curvature of the elements, right? So I would not expect there to be as much shine right here or as much light information on this area. I need to simplify that. And we can grab that like very dark, sort of like brown color, and use that to separate each plank to really indicate where the planks end. For instance, here, right? Even though we don't have the geometry, that doesn't mean that we cannot paint in the division. Do it right there. Because here there's a very big changing plane. Can you see there on the geometry? So if we really want to like showcase that changing plane, we're going to change the way this thing is shaded. We're going to use a different type of shade. Right there. And of course we can sort of like blend it or have some like smoother transitions. Look at how cooler that sort of like wood grain looks in that particular area, because we're defining again the planes of the element. El Zebra says, "Up, Abe. Greetings from Argentina, hermanito. One question: does 3D Code can do the same thing as a Substance Painter and vice versa?" Yes, in theory it can. It's really strong. I've not used the PBR stuff as much. I mainly use 3D Code for this kind of things that I'm showing right now, which is hand painted stuff. But technically it can. It can paint like opacity. It can paint all that kind of like elements. For instance, here I'm gonna add some cool details. Let's lighten this up a little bit as well, because this corner is very similar in planes to this corner right here. I really think you can do something in the Style Suite ZBrush. Yeah. Oh, okay. So no, I don't think Substance can do as good as a job in hand painted textures as 3D Code, and I don't think 3D Code can do as good as a job at PBR textures as Substance. So they both have the tools. You can do both of the stuff on both of them, but I don't think you're gonna be able to get the exact same result. Sup? What's up, man? Welcome from the Philippines. Awesome. Welcome to the stream. I know it's very late over there. Grab this light color in all of this area. Let's paint it. Look at how much this starts sort of like changing, right? Like we're really adding all of that volume and all of those elements. That's what we want to do. And a very similar approach to what we did with the fish, right? We start simple, and then we start adding more and more elements. Stylized Emerald Girl project you was also looking really good. Oh yeah, I'm still not finished with that one. I'm working on it. There's still a couple of things that I need to finish on that project, and then I'll update it. I mean, it was finished. I considered it finished, but then I saw a lot of things like, oh, I could definitely fix this, I could definitely fix that, and I'm actually not following my own advice of just like moving on. It's like, oh, I really want to finish this one like right. So yeah. I'm not sure if I should show it yet. I'll show it later. Another time. It's a hand-painted one. It's a personal project I'm working on, and I want to keep it. I'm really tempted to show it because I'm really happy with how it's turning out. But it's one of those projects that, since it's a personal project that I did without the intention of using it for YouTube or anything, it's like, nah, I'll just keep it for myself. And once it's ready, I'll show it. Because if I show it now, then I'm gonna have the pressure to finish it for YouTube or for something. It's like, no. I want to just keep it for myself. There's a sneak peek, yeah, as Mango is saying right there. There was a video I did with like an emerald mask, where I showed all of the mesh maps that you can export or use. That is part of the project, but it's not the full project. Tomorrow is a tool good at making textures and painting. Yes, Khalid, it's very good. I just did a full tutorial last month. It's available on the site, and yeah, it's a really good software. And if you don't like paying for subscriptions for like a Substance Painter, it's also a very good like option, because it has a you can pay it once and then you own it forever. I like this. I think it's a little bit too heavy on the lightness. I'm gonna bring in a little bit of the other map. Nah, that's fine. Let's keep it here. Let's see. Hi, man. Hope you're well. I'm a Mario user, and I'm meaning to pick Painter up. Is it quick to pick up? Yes, yes. No, it's not fundamentally the same, my friend. It does change a couple of things. It's a little bit more layer-based and a little bit more... I mean, Mario is also procedural, so... I mean, if you've used Mario, you're not going to have that much of a hard time. You might want to check, again, the substance course that I have on the site. That one covers all of the necessary tools from the very beginning, so... But yeah, but no, it's easy to pick. Very user-friendly, I would say. Yeah, I've shown that project to some of my mentors or my mentees. Demonstrate a couple of things. Someone asked about mentorships. I don't have spots available right now because I'm a little bit busy finishing other things. But I will probably open up a spot like mid-May. Guys are interested. Soften that a little bit. Yeah, you can buy Substance on Steam. That's possible, but you won't get updates. And if you like updates, like to keep up to date and stuff like that, you might want to consider like the subscription. I'm currently on the indie subscription, and it's okay. But if I ever need to cancel it, I'll probably get like a copy on Steam. There we go. I like that. It looks good. Oh, there you go. White Minus is confirming that Substance on Steam gets updated, but it only updates for the year that you paid. Okay, well, that's not that bad. I mean, updates for softwares are cool, guys, but every now and then, like, you could stick... Like, I could go back to, like, ZBrush 2021, which is the one that I have the perpetual license for, and I could perfectly do most of the stuff. Like, there's gonna be a couple of things that might be a little bit more complicated to do, but it shouldn't be that difficult. And nowadays, with things like Blender, with all of its free tools, even easier to do things. Okay, yeah, I really like how this one is looking. Let me bring in the fish. Here. Invert hidden faces? No. Height and... Oh, height off. There we go. Yeah, not bad. I'm on ZBrush 2022 with the free updates. Did they remove it at some point? Yeah, when Maxon acquired ZBrush, they removed everything, man. So, I'm subscribed to ZBrush per month. But if I ever stop paying, well, my subscription just dies. So, lowering some of the highlights on some areas, especially the ones that are lower where the light won't hit as much. I want to keep it a little bit lower. Like, we still want to have a little bit of that highlight. Not too much, right? Just a little bit of an indication of the change on the wood. Feels a little bit dusty, so I'm gonna remove a little bit of the effects. Starting to feel a little bit like dust. No, I've not decided the next course yet, man. Still working on that. Let's see. Soup says, "Hey Abe, I just recently got your chance to be my 3D professor's apprentice in our school, and you closing lines in your videos always kept me going. Always learning, always improving." There you go, man. Yeah, that's my personal motto, and what I like to follow as well, because that's life. Ty Lion, ¿cómo estás, amigo? Muy bien, ¿y tú? Bienvenido aquí al stream. You have Total Play for your internet. You might be interested in the whole thing that happened with the Mega. Yeah, no, I don't have it. I don't have Total Play. I got Telmex here in my house. Thankfully, we have Have that. No, we do not have an environment course yet. It's one of the things that we're planning on doing. Have not been able to nail it yet, so we're working on that. All of the courses that we currently have are on our site, ableal3d.com. Check those right there. Got a little bit of everything. We got Substance Painter, we got Marvelous, we got the word ZBrush, of course, Maya, Blender. Yeah, merch is coming soon as well, guys. We're looking at the best possible options, because right now with all of the geopolitical things happening in the world, things are gonna get tricky. Things are gonna get tricky for everyone. A little bit more right here. Do you know how to make backlighting in Substance Painter? I don't think I've done it in Substance Painter, but I've done it in Marmoset. Definitely done it in Marmoset. Shouldn't be that much different, to be honest. Okay, let's add a couple of... I think I want to add like a cut here on the wood. Again, using the rules of the planes. Things. We can add that sort of like effect. If we want to add like a scratch, very simple. Again, we find where my light will be coming from. So the light's coming from this direction. So that's where the scratch is gonna be. That will be the light plane of the scratch for the wood, right? Then we'll grab like a dark color. That will be like the plane of the color right there. Then of course we need to blend, because it's not going to be perfect. So some areas of the scratch be a little bit lighter, some areas of the scratch darker. That. How good is Blender for baking? I don't think it's great, but I also don't think it's horrible. So, I mean, if you have Substance Painter, you have no need doing bakes inside of Blender. And for Marmoset, like if you're using Marmoset or if you have Marmoset, there's absolutely no reason why you should be doing your bakes inside of Blender. But if you have to make your blends on Blender, you could do it. Even Maya has a baking system. Again, it's not like perfect or anything, but it's there. So, but yeah, ideally you want to do them either on Marmoset or on, what's the word? Substance. I stand corrected. You can see the passport of Legacy ZBrush on your Maxon account. Yeah. If you have your Maxon account, you can still log in and get access to your license, so you can still download ZBrush 2021 and keep using it or installing it. But you cannot buy it anymore. Like, they do not offer the option to buy a perpetual license of ZBrush anymore. Let's add another cut down here. Actually, nah, I don't wanna like overdo it, because we already have like a cut right there. We just a little wood nut or something over here. A little bit darker. And we might even add like highlight there. If you have 5 minutes, can you check it out and give some feedbacks? No, we're not going to do feedbacks today, man. We do that at the end of the month for portfolio review. As you guys know, we still got like 2 more weeks to go for that. But we will have portfolio review at the end of the month, as we do every month. Okay. Cool. So I think I really like how this is turning out. And if we turn stuff off, like this is how it started out of Substance Painter. Fish. Golden plate, wood. You can see how it's really changing. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add another layer, and I'm gonna start adding a couple of like extra little details here to to really make this pop a little bit more. I'm gonna blend a little bit more stuff. So as you can see, we still got some areas that are a little bit messy, and I don't want this to look as sort of like artistic. I'm gonna show you how to render this on Marmoset, by the way, in just a second. I'm just gonna use this last layer sort of like as a blending layer to clean some of the stuff. And we can also add a little bit of reflection. So for instance, right now, this fish right here. The first 2 hours of the stream. So as I was mentioning, I'm gonna be using this to blend things, and there should be a little bit of reflections. For instance, we have a little bit of blue from the fish right here, so I can add a little bit of blue here, reflecting off the eye, right? It's gonna make it feel more, a little bit more as part of the same thing, because it should be reflecting a little bit of its own sort of like skin right here. I could add a little bit of blue reflection onto the wood, but again, if we are gonna have a situation where there's not gonna be the fish, and then we bring the fish in and place it right there, we could do it as well. But I'm gonna avoid that. Is my mic bugging out? I've been trying to. Yeah, maybe my setup is not perfect. I'll check it after the stream. Marto Game, thanks for the sub, man. So I'm gonna use a soft brush right now. And again, I'm going to use it to just blend a little bit of the texture. I do like when hand-painted stuff, when you can actually see the brush strokes, right? I feel like that it's a good way to see that the hand of the artist, or sort of like the style, but not too much, right? So I'm going to use, again, this brush to like soften up some of this like very intense brush strokes. This is one way to blend, as I mentioned. And the other one would be to like manually go with each element and just fix it. Yeah. This is one of the reasons why I really like this model is because it's relatively simple, right? It's a nice little exercise. It could potentially be a portfolio piece. I'm not sure if it qualifies for a portfolio piece or not. But it's a nice piece. It's a nice little prop. It teaches you the basics. It's a little bit of everything: metal, glossy surfaces, things like that. So we can definitely use it. And again, I'm using this final layer as a sort of oh my god, we're gonna start with the freaking. Yes, we're gonna be well, we're not gonna add specifically that type of effect, but I am gonna add, again, like just a little bit of touches here and there to just push this a little bit more. It's like the final 10% that we're doing here. For instance, on the glossy of some of the elements. Right? Those little like details that can really push our character to the next level. Scales. Some of the scales, just sort of like brighten them up. A little bit of an indication here. The Wanshu says, is it necessary for a character artist to know rigging, skin, animation? No, it's not necessary, but it's a good idea that you at least try it once to do the full thing, so that you can see what kind of things in your topology, in your proportions, in your anatomy work, and which things do not work. Because if we don't try our characters and we don't see the sort of like the full process, it's very difficult to really understand if we're doing it right or not. Oh, I really like this. Really happy with the result. Okay, let me show you a little trick that we're gonna do. So remember this one that we had right here? Oh, not that one. This one right here, the ambient occlusion. The ambient occlusion can really, again, bring everything together, but one thing I don't like about the ambient occlusion is the fact that it's black and white. And when you're doing with black and whites, they're very like absolute values. So it can be a little bit difficult to get something that looks a little bit nicer. So here's what I'm gonna do. I am going to save, first of all, and I'm gonna edit. I'm gonna again go and edit all layers in external editor. So we're gonna go back to Photoshop. Let's hit update. There we go. And this is my ambient occlusion layer, right? So if I take a look at the ambient occlusion layer as a normal layer, one of the things that I can do is I can press Ctrl U and use colorize to change the colors of the layer. So instead of being them black and white, we can pick pretty much any color that we want. So I'm gonna go with like a sort of like a bluish, purplish color, something like this. Hit OK, and then I'm gonna Control L to go into the values. And I don't want to have absolute black values right there, so I'm gonna push this one up. And as you can see, we're gonna get a very soft, sort of like purplish hue right here. I'm gonna hit Control S. So now, if we go back to this one, this is what we have, right? And the cool thing with this one is we can set this again to something like a multiply. Oh, not that one. That one. But this one. We can set this to like a multiply. And we're gonna get again that little sort of like a juicy effect on a character, right? So instead of having a shadow that's very dark and very intense, again black and white, we use this as a little bit of an extra little thing that we can add. And we could go for something else like overlay, for instance. Overlay is gonna of course really brighten things up, but if then we bring the opacity really down, something like 20%, 15%, you can see that it sort of like helps me get all of the colors into the same realm, right? Like it allows me to blend everything and keep them together in sort of like the same effect, but without the need to destroy all of our work with a very intense color. We could even try like a saturation thing so that it only adds saturation, or not saturation, color. There we go. So you can see that it only adds the color effect right there. So there's a lot of things that we can do, even linear dodge, or I don't know, multiply was working quite nice, to be honest, because it gives us a little bit of contrast, a little bit of shadow, right? But it doesn't destroy all of the information. Let's see. I would use the nodes in Blender to make normals facing up be brighter and yellower to add more highlights. Yeah, we can actually do something similar with Substance Painter. Like we can bring this back into Substance Painter and add like a light node or something like that. We can actually paint that as well. Like if I just add a new layer, I could grab like a very soft like brush right here, grab like a nice like back right there. Oh. Paint all of the like upper layers. Oh, not there. Move this layer up. Go. So we can paint all of these layers like this. Right, it's like a light layer. We set this to again like color dodge. We bring the opacity really down. Kind of like adding an extra little push there on the lights, right? So this is already going into like a high contrast like workflow. So it really depends. For instance, League of Legends is very low contrast. Like you're not gonna see this like super harsh lights on the characters as much. Other games in World of Warcraft, like there were some seasons and some like patches where you might see this a little bit more intensely, but in this particular one, like it's not that much. This is here. We can add the same thing to push our gold a little bit more into like the gold effects. It's not bad, right? Like it gives a little bit more of light information into the element. I would even keep this like really low, like maybe just like a 10% of the intensity, just as a light little boost. But usually you want to have this boost on your own like element or on your own object. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I love how the eyes on the back there like overlapping. Normally you would delete that, of course, so that it's not like we don't see it on the back, but that could be like a nice little Easter egg. Now we need a name for this fish. What's the name going to be? What name should we add to this little fish right here? We're gonna create like a little bit of an embedded name here on the bottom. What's gonna be the nice what's gonna be the yeah, his name? No, that's too much. It's too much. 20%. Claudio. Claudio is a very interesting name. Glenn's another interesting name. Let's see. 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 Any more ideas? Any more ideas? An Easter egg perfect for the holidays. Here you go. Moby Dick, Pointy, Ronald. I like Ronald. Gary, Raul, Mario. Captain Toothpick. That's a very good one, man. I like that one. Captain Toothpick. Let's go with that one. So let's see if it's gonna fit right here.
Are you a web creator?
So we're gonna do
elevate your design skills and explore.
Finish. Okay, so we're gonna have to minimize the name, otherwise it's not gonna fit. It's gonna be C. And then P. There you go. Oh my god, gifted subs. There you go. 10 gifted subs from our good friend Tofu. Tofpil. Thank you, my friend. Thank you very much. Awesome, dude. Awesome. Thank you so much for the little gift here for our Easter streams. It's gonna be Captain. There you go. Captain. Oh. Toothpick. Oh, we're gonna get 10 alerts, I think. Sorry about that. I haven't checked how that works. But thank you so much, man. Thank you for the gifts. Got Albert Horn, Rainy Fox, Captain Coder, Punky Face, Belzebul, Max Baker, Andre, Nengonic. There you go. A lot of subs today. And it's gonna be Tooth. Pick. I'm going for like a very cartoonish type of like font, as you can see right here. There we go. Captain Toothpick. Awesome. Now, what we can do with this one, we have very few pixels, right? This is going to look a little bit like pixel art. But what we can do is we can go for the highlight of the gold value and then hit all of the corners or all of the elements where we would see this thing be raised from the surface. Okay? Like this. Control S. There you go. So in all of the areas where we would see or we would expect the light to hit, we can add a little bit of this. Just like harsh light. There you go. About that, I'm not sure. We're getting 10 of those, right? Should be ending now. There we go. So again, because we don't have a lot of pixels to work with because of the texture size, it's just an indication. Just a little bit of a line, right, on all of the edges. And that's gonna make it look like it's being raised from the surface. Kind of like if you've done Photoshop, it's kind of like using the like a bevel, one of the bevel like filters that you can use for some layers. There you go. See that? So that now looks really interesting. Nice. Let's write a little message down here. Oh, we have very few pixels on this side because I made this very, very small. So let's say Easter 25. Go. Awesome. Okay, so Control S, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, we can always, this is the eternal debate, right? For any project and any artist. At any point, we can keep polishing, we can keep like cleaning stuff, we can keep adding more details, more elements. But for an exercise and for the stream, I think we are in a very good option, right? So with this one right here, let's save real quick, and we're gonna export. So I'm gonna say File. We're gonna export. Or textures here, and then export. We just need to export the color albedo map, and we're gonna call this color and paint it. There we go. And we can go to Marmoset now. Yeah, I think it turned out quite nice, right? Again, if we compare this to the previous, and we're gonna do the comparison in just a second. I think it's a very, very good result. Especially for what, like 4 hours of work? Not bad. Go here, fish v2, there we go. So this is our mesh. Dun, 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 dun. Let's duplicate so that we can see both of them. And it's very simple to set this up. We actually covered this on the Marmoset course. The only thing we need to do, I'm gonna call this old color. The only thing you need to do is we need to go to albedo, change this to, or sorry, here on the diffusion, change this to unlit, and then on the reflection, none, reflectivity, none. That's it. So now this is a completely like flat hand painted element. If we go here to the bakes and we use the initial base color, this is it. Now I'm gonna duplicate this material. This one I'm gonna assign to the second fish. There we go. And then this one right here, we're gonna add the hand painted color. And look at the difference right there, guys. Like, that is the difference between a... Let me just make sure I'm not missing something because it looks a little bit different. Yeah, that's the difference between a procedural sort of like approach to hand-painted texture, which we did with Substance Painter, and this is a more like hand-painted actual texture on this one right here. So that's the before and after. But something is not looking right here. Give me 1 second, because I'm not sure if it might be one of the like the render engines, because you can see the difference. This one here looks a little bit more contrasty, and here looks a little bit more dull. It's this is something that definitely has to do with the AGX filters. Yeah, there we go, AGX. So we're gonna change this back to linear. AGX is fine, but as you can see, it tries to bring all of the high points a little bit closer. So in this case, we need to change this to either ACES, it's a little bit too exposed, or linear. Linear is going to give us the true result. So this linear effect right here should be the exact same one that we're seeing here inside of Substance. The only difference, of course, is that the background always influences things. And this is the big difference about, or the important thing about color, guys. You need to never forget this. Our eyes and our perception is influenced by the context of the image, always. So right now, the colors are going to look a certain way, and they're going to look a little bit different compared to this one because of the background. If I bring the background brightness down, right, to complete black, the colors are going to look completely different. Look at how, again, our perception changes as the background changes, right? Because there's more contrast between the tones. So in this case, if we want to get as close as possible to the 3D code one, we need to make the background darker so that we can really appreciate the colors. But yeah, you can see there, night and day, as you mentioned, on how we can perceive the different elements. Now, this is a question that I got asked relatively recently about Arcane, right? Like, how do they do Arcane when they have hand-painted stuff and also light information, right? Because there's shadows and things like that. Well, the answer is they keep this thing as a Lambertian thing like this, right? So there's going to be some sort of like elements. There's not going to be reflection. Usually there's no like, any sort of like glow or anything. And then in this case, if we were to add one source of light, this source of light will affect the object. Right? So we will see things like shadows and things like that. They will be present, but it will depend on the on the object itself. The only problem with doing this, doing light and hand painted stuff, is that if your light source does not match the direction of your hand painted stuff, it might look a little bit weird. Okay, just keep that in mind, because if I, for instance, light this thing from the bottom and I increase the lightness, then it's gonna be a little bit weird that we have this like very intense light right there, and also this light on the top. So that's the problem with using like light in that way. Normally, for games that are using hand painted stuff, they will have no light contribution. So everything is gonna be done this way. Maybe there's gonna be like some shadows, but that's pretty much it. You're making me want to try out hand painted texture. Is that good? Yeah, it's very fun. It's very fun. Am I doing a free course here? I wouldn't say this is a free course, but it does cover like the basics of hand-painted stuff. I definitely want to do a hand-painted course. It's one of the things that I have in mind. But yeah, that's it, guys. That's pretty much it right here. Of course, here on the rendering stuff on the camera, we can change things such as the exposure, right? This is not changing things on the textures themselves. This is the rendering, so this is all like filters. This is one of the things that we can do to modify a couple of things, right? We can add a little bit more contrast, less contrast, change the saturation, more saturation, less saturation. So you can always modify things in here. But yeah, hopefully guys, with this exercise that we did in this couple of live streams, you can see how important it is to be able to take something that you can get, again, procedurally, and really push it to the next level by utilizing the tools that we can learn as artists. Tools, as we mentioned, with like things like AI and all of these elements, they will keep improving. It will be easier to get to this point than it was like several years ago. But you still need the artist's hands to really push this, again, to sort of like the next level with something like this. So yeah, you guys like this couple of sessions here, understanding the full workflow. This can now go into any game. You can bring this into Unity, you can bring this into Unreal, you can bring this anywhere, and it's just going to be a very simple like element. Someone was asking about the poly count. So the fish has 1,000 triangles, 1,074. The wood has 284, and the plate has 18. So we are at less than 1,500 triangles, and we already have this, okay? Alan says, Abe, I know you're busy, but we really need to do a get-together sometime. Well, not right now. I got fired a couple of weeks ago. Dude! Oh, that sucks, man. But yeah, I'm really thinking about doing like a meet or something, like a workshop, something like that in Monterey, which is a city near where I am and where there's a little bit more of our students. So maybe we can do something like that. Marius says, hi Ave, I was wondering if you still have mentorship available. Not right now, man. Not right now. I'm already a little bit busy, but I will have more spots available on May. Okay, so send me a message on Discord and I can tell you when on May I'm going to be available and we can figure something out from there, okay? So, yeah, that's it. I think with this, we are really, what's the word? We're really getting to the end of the stream. I really enjoyed this exercise. I think we did something quite nice. So, oh, sorry. So that's it, my friends. I'm gonna be ending the stream now. If you wanna, of course, support the channel, as I always tell you, if you want to allow me to continue to do this, because it's always all thanks to you, make sure to leave a like, share, subscribe here on YouTube. We're really close to the next milestone, which is gonna be 50K subs. I think if my calculation is right, we should be able to get there by the end of June, which is our anniversary, our 2-year anniversary. So it would be very, very cool if you guys can help us there to get to that milestone. If you want to learn a little bit more about all of the softwares, you know, Marmoset, Substance, Maya, Blender, ZBrush, we don't have a 3D code course yet, but that might be coming soon. Make sure to check the, what's the word? The site, right? Our site. So the site should be here in the description. Enjoy your weekend. If you guys are going to be celebrating or going for a small vacation or something, make sure to enjoy. And I'll see you back on the next week, okay? We're going to have some cool stuff for next week. So feel free to join our Discord as well to keep in touch and make sure to get all the news about our processes right here. That's it, guys. Don't forget, always learning, always improving. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.